This bonus podcast on Best Medicine is full of Doc Martin spoilers. If you do not want to be spoiled by Doc Martin spoilers for your Best Medicine viewing experience, now is your time to bail. This is your final warning. So I had at least one request for Chris's impressions. People missed that from last time. Welcome back, Chris.
And it's good to be here.
Nice to have you in the same room.
In the same,
very nice.
The same state.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we decided that we would talk about, really keep the focus on the Best family and Louisa's interactions with them as far as Best Medicine goes, and compare that to Doc Martin and the Ellinghams and Louisa. So what was your impression of the Best group?
The Best group.
Yeah.
Well, just as a summary of my reaction to the episode, I thought it was the episode that I enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
Because it had the most character development. We got to see Martin's parents. We got to see Louisa and Martin have a couple moments together. We got to see Louisa and Mark have a couple moments together. And the character development there I thought was very good. I thought Mark was good. So, so looking between the Ellinghams and the Best.
The Ellinghams.
The Ellinghams.
Got to keep the watchers happy.
Right. Between the Ellinghams and the Bests, I like the Bests better. Where do we start? We can see Martin Ellingham be his usual monosyllabic and be a very laconic person with very little emotion at all.
No, this is season 2.
It is season 2.
So people remember.
Yeah.
So season 2, Martin Ellingham can smile. He can tell snarky jokes.
He does smile a couple times.
And
he definitely does.
And he's snarky.
Yes.
My favorite Martin Ellingham.
But in terms of his reactions to Louisa, sadly...
You got to give him a little slack. He had just been told by his mother.
True. Okay. Yes. True.
So Doc Martin people recognize the scene we're talking about where Margaret Ellingham basically tells Martin how he ruined her life by being born.
Right. And for 40 years, she's been paying for that.
Yes.
So
he's trying to digest that. And poor Louisa comes and just rattles on and doesn't read the room. She doesn't see that he's in a bad state.
But let me say, even before that occurs, they have their moment at the school. And Louisa's a little put out and says, I was like somebody waiting at a restaurant, waiting for somebody to show up. Martin says, well, I had something with a patient, friend of yours. Louisa says, oh, well, still, you could have called. And Martin says, yes. Does he apologize? Does he say, oh, I'm sorry, I could have done that? No. So, and that's even before.
I know.
So, okay.
Although his parents are there the whole time.
His parents did come in.
Little tense.
Did come in.
Yeah.
So the dynamic of Martin and Louisa, Martin Ellingham and Louisa still needs a lot of work. And as viewers of Doc Martin are aware,
it takes a long time. It's a lifelong thing.
As Chesla will know.
The best men are difficult.
Progress takes time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can show this. Progress takes time.
Yes.
As far as Martin and his parents go, it's clear that Martin Ellingham and his parents have not spoken to each other for years.
Yeah, 7 years, he says.
Right. And Martin Best and Robert Best, I think it's a surprise when he shows up.
Yeah, that's right.
But you don't get the impression that it's been like 7 years and they haven't. It's perhaps been a long while. He wasn't expecting them, but it's not a distant relationship. It's cordial. It's like, oh, you're here.
Right.
What can I do?
Cordial within reason, because
within
you get this
reason.
whole Robert and Vanessa thing going, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a little odd. And then he does say, I am their offspring, rather than they are my parents. So they have these funky little things when they come in. You don't get a sense that there's a lot of closeness in this family.
Right. There's a little awkwardness. I mean, it is, the waiting room is full. There are a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And so, you don't go over and hug them, although you may not anyways.
Yeah, there's not a lot of hugging here.
Yeah. Although Aunt Sarah hugs.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, Aunt Sarah's a hugger. But
Yeah.
she's different. She did not experience Rosemary.
Right.
Right? I'm sure she was grieving because it would have been her niece.
Yeah, but it's within the family. There's a cordiality there, and not like the estrangement.
Yeah, that the Ellinghams had.
With the Ellinghams.
Yeah.
So.
And also, we do have the sort of parallelism between Christopher Ellingham telling Joan,
yes,
right, you're having an affair, right, and you've got Robert Best telling Sarah, you're having an affair.
Right.
Two sisters make different choices, but they both end up with a lose-lose result.
True.
So there's no love lost between brother and sister.
Right. And when they're sitting down at Sarah's table, and she gets right to the point. What are you here? What are you doing here?
Yep.
And so very direct.
It sounds like Christopher Ellingham actually had been writing to Joan, and she'd just been throwing his letters away. So it's possible he was warning her what was going on.
Right.
And that's why he actually planned his trip because Martin picked him up at the train station.
Right.
Whereas Robert Best just wanders in with Vanessa.
Yes. Right. So you have in the Ellingham case, a poor investment in farming.
No, in the Ellingham case, it's an investment in a golf course.
Golf course. I'm sorry. Yeah. What? Golf course, farming. You both have lots of land.
Yes.
Sometimes it's green on top.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Versus gambling debts.
Yeah. And in the best case, it's a gambling debt.
Right.
So.
One thing I would say is the Ellinghams, Margaret and Christopher, cause the trauma with Martin. Right? They are the cause of this trauma.
Yes.
Whereas the Bests have a shared trauma.
Yes. It's an accident.
Right. But it's a shared trauma, and then they never discuss it. So it happened, and then it's just, in Martin, like, it probably festers. Whereas in Robert, it gets suppressed.
Well, yeah, in Robert, I mean, Martin is a kid. It's his older sister.
Right.
Is probably a very big part of his world.
Because he says he thinks about her every day, even though she was a pest.
Yeah. In Robert's case, Robert and Vanessa's case, they're adults. They have more of a...
Yeah, but it was a child. I mean, a death of a child is supposed to be like the worst thing ever.
No, it's death of a spouse.
Okay, all right. Then a child.
Then loss of a job.
Seriously?
I think so.
No way.
Those are the two, and then you have the child.
That can't be right. I believe you, but it can't be right. Not for nothing. I mean, so Martin was 6 and Rosemary was 8.
Yes.
One of these things that you think of. When I was 5, I lost my 4-year-old playmate. I'll never forget. As a kid, as a 5-year-old, I still remember he had aplastic anemia, and I remember my parents telling me that he got a bruise and it killed him, basically. Like, there was no discussion around it. It was just kind of, similar to other things. Just, we'll explain it and then it's done. But, a kid who's 5 or 6, you can't really understand what's going on.
Yeah.
The things, what's odd, I remember I had a little plastic barrette. And I remember chewing that thing until there was like nothing left of it but this massive gnawed plastic. And it was, I think that was just a stress response because I didn't know what to do with myself and nobody was talking to me about it. Anyway, little aside there. I just have a weird life. Anyway, so they have this, the Bests have a shared trauma. And Martin Ellingham has a trauma that is imposed upon him, a lifelong of neglect, abuse, and lack of love.
One other thing comparing the series that they're sort of like slice and dicing the Doc Martin series and putting the pieces into Best Medicine. So Vanessa is a psychiatrist.
Right.
Margaret, we don't know what she did. But
she's just sort of like a wife of a doctor, I think.
Yeah. But Vanessa is a psychiatrist. And in the original Doc Martin, they have their Aunt Ruth, who's a psychiatrist. And I think that sort of bleeds in, or that Ruth is a very forthright. Ellingham, her emotions are very kept within. I suppose she might hug Martin from time to
She
time.
does.
Within limits.
But when she's super grateful that she's not dying of lupus,
Oh,
that
yes.
was a big day for her.
Right. So they've taken sort of the profession and understanding of Aunt Ruth
Right.
and putting that into Vanessa.
Yeah. And you look at Margaret and Christopher, right? You've got a supposed, all we know is from Margaret's perspective, that they were the perfect couple. We don't know if they were from Christopher's perspective, but you know, let's just take it for a second.
I will take it. Not sure I'll keep it.
Just for a minute. And then they've got basically this marriage that's fallen apart because Christopher could never see her again as anything other than a deflated balloon.
Right.
And it's all Martin's fault. And Christopher's obviously a womanizer, and he's a slimy son of a gun.
Womanizer and slimy.
Yep.
Yes.
Whereas Robert Best and Vanessa do seem to be a loving couple.
Yes.
He does
With problems. But they get on together.
They get on together, and they're still married, and it looks like they might even be able to negotiate this gambling thing because she seems kind of like.
At first, it looks like she's gonna that's it.
Yeah.
But you get the idea that
She might get over her anger and be able. They might be able to work it out.
They're going back. She's driving.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Right. But yet she apologizes to Martin at the end, and
yes.
why?
Which
we don't know
could
why.
Have been of any of several things.
What do you think?
Margaret would never apologize.
No.
Yeah.
No, but why?
But
what is Vanessa apologizing for?
Well, she could be apologizing for their hasty departure.
Yeah.
She could be after the revelation of her husband's gambling debts. Could be apologizing for the way they treated him after Rosemary's death.
Could be.
But
we don't know. I mean,
don't know.
That's just a thought, right? Because there's no hints to that.
Right. Or apologizing for their the current state of their relationship, which could be better.
Right. So, or I was thinking just now that she could be apologizing just for the fact that they came here and they were going to completely upset the apple cart with Aunt Sarah. Someone who, Martin really loves. And also, like, the reason Martin didn't get to see Aunt Sarah anymore is because of Robert not allowing Martin to see Aunt Sarah.
Right.
Now, Aunt Sarah, of course, very different from Aunt Joan. So Aunt Joan chooses Marty and loses John Slater, and then Christopher doesn't send Martin.
Right.
So lose for her. Whereas Aunt Sarah picks Principal, and Martin's not sent, and then she loses Principal. So it's like lose, but two very different choices.
They lose one by choice, and the other they lose by happenstance.
But Christopher's is slimier because it's like, I'm not sending my son because you're having this affair. She ends the affair. He doesn't send the son anyway. It's like, you son of a gun.
Yeah, it's true.
True. What about Louisa? Like, Louisa doesn't meet the Ellinghams.
No.
But Louisa Gavin meets the Bests.
Yes.
At least Vanessa.
Right. And Vanessa. They certainly at the point where they're in the basement of the school.
Right.
Everybody's together,
there.
So, everybody's there.
It's not really a meeting as much as an emergency.
Right. But, Vanessa and Louisa do have a moment together. And Vanessa is...
kind.
Yeah, kind.
Yeah. And she even recognizes that Louisa is in love with Martin.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Vanessa is a psychiatrist, so she's probably skilled at being able to read people, pick things up from people, and able to figure them out.
Yeah.
So she's figured out Louisa is in love with Martin.
Yep.
So
my son would be a fool not to love you back.
And the best men
are difficult. That's a great place to end. I hope you guys enjoyed this little extra segment. We wanted to do this, but the schedules did not permit. So,
and I've enjoyed
having right here,
being able to do this together.
Yes. So thanks for watching. Little extra bonus. Take care, folks.
Bye.
Thanks for joining Podcast Portwenn. Podcast Portwenn is an independent fan production, not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by Buffalo Pictures, ITV, Fox, or the creators of Doc Martin or Best Medicine.